Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new SEGA News Bits. I'm your host, George. With me is Barry.
Guess what happened to me today? I punched a garbage can and an apple came out and I ate it.
And that means that we're talking about Streets of Rage turning 25 years old. It actually turned 25 on August 2nd, but we've been busy and we didn't have time to give you guys a video. So here we are talking about Streets of Rage.
I blame Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog on this one.
Yeah.
And actually, Sonic the Hedgehog also turned 25, and it came out a couple of months prior to the debut of Streets of Rage. So 1991 was a pivotal time for the Sega Genesis. It got two of its biggest franchises. You know, the main influences were obviously Double Dragon and Final Fight. And I talk more about the first game, which is on our website, SEGAbits.com, probably still the featured article. You guys could read it. Hope you guys do and you guys like it. But let's talk about it. Streets of Rage 2 co-op. I mean, it featured co-op play. Final Fight on the Super Nintendo did not. The arcade version did. The Super Nintendo version was single player. Did you remember the hype pretty early on in our lives, Barry? But do you remember this being 2 players, and did you ever play it?
I'll admit I did not own Streets of Rage at the time, though I recall distinctly playing Double Dragon on the NES and thinking that Sega must be doing something better. And I did play it, I think maybe 1992, 1993, probably at a friend's house, because, you know, it's important to note, this was not an arcade series. You know, it wasn't like Golden Axe, it wasn't like Shinobi. This was a game that was born on the Sega Genesis. Do you think, this is a question for you actually, do you think that they made this an original series to get people to buy the Genesis because this was an experience you could not get at the arcade?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do think. I think this is one game that was aimed at the North American and European audience. And you could kind of tell the music was not popular in Japan. I did, in the article I did, Yuzo Koshiro said that he chose the musical style because club music was more popular in the West. And he felt like the Mega Drive was selling better in Europe and in America. So this is definitely aimed at the West. Personally, me, I didn't play it. I played Streets of Rage 2 before I played this one, which is odd. Did play it. I actually kind of enjoyed it. One of the things I enjoyed, and which we'll talk about right now, is the game's soundtrack, which is considered one of the best video game soundtracks in history. Opinion on this soundtrack?
Well, I mean, it has, Streets of Rage 2 specifically has one of my favorite video game soundtracks, which is, I believe it's called, what, Go Straight?
Yes, yes.
I love the titles, but it's just such a good sound. It's such a good soundtrack, and that's such a good track. I love the long build-up, and then it just kicks into like just one of the most memorable, it's such a great hook that and maybe I don't want to ask too much, but when you're editing this, maybe have this music playing so people can just hear it. But it's so good, so good.
Some people consider that the first soundtrack is better than the second one, which is actually going to be a question later on. But might as well just take it down. Which one do you think is better, soundtrack or Streets of Rage 2? And do you think nostalgia plays a factor into which one you chose?
I would say 2, and I will concede that I think nostalgia does play a factor, because I played 2 before 1, and I've played 2 more than 1. I think it's important to note, though, that actually in the book Sega Mega Drive Genesis Collected Works by Darren Wall, which was a Kickstarter book that we actually had him on the show before, and we did some Streets of Rage talk with him too. It was mentioned that they asked Yuzo Koshiro if he composed the Mega Drive soundtracks alone or with the design team, and he said he normally composes on his own. So Bare Knuckle, Streets of Rage 1, was on his own, and Bare Knuckle 2 and 3 soundtracks were collaborative works created with Motohiro Kawashima. So that's a little...
Yeah, he actually only did a few tracks, but then again, when you think about Sega Genesis music, there's only like 10 tracks. Yeah. So yeah, the other guy did contribute. I think Koshiro, whatever, he gets the most credit for it because his tracks, let's be honest, were the best ones on the soundtrack.
For sure.
I agree. And way better than Final Fight. I think one thing that even Final Fight fanatics could agree with is that Streets of Rage just had the better soundtrack.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure.
Let's talk a couple more questions about the first one before we move on to 2, but the game had 3 heroes, Adam, Blaze, and Axel. For your favorite out of these 3?
I typically go with the female character when I play these games, mainly because I like, they always make them faster. They don't have the most health, but they're always faster, and I like to zip around the stage a lot. I don't know if that's actually the case with her, but it's just what I've been trained to know, so I always pick Blaze. I feel like, what is it, Adam? I feel like he got the short end of the stick.
Oh, he did. I picked him all the time, but yeah, I agree with you. Axel was usually the one to go with, but something about a guy named Adam Hunter that made me be like, this guy is pretty big badass right here.
What was his original name? The original name that they had?
Black Falcon.
Oh boy.
He's a black guy, so you gotta call him Black Falcon, I guess.
Right, of course.
Oh, Streets of Rage, the first one actually had a release on the Game Gear and a release on the Master System. Game Gear came out in 1992. The Master System came out in 1993. The Master System version was actually exclusive to PAL regions. And the Game Gear version only featured Axel and Blaze, 5 rounds, and I guess it had 2-player co-op, but via link cable. The Master System only had 2 enemies on screen and it was 1 player only. Did you play any of these versions?
I did not, no. I do have wasn't Streets of Rage put on a special sampler disc for the Sega CD?
I have no idea. It could have been.
I believe it was. That's one version I have, assuming I'm thinking of the right disc. But no, I've never played those other ones. I really want to, though.
I always find it weird that Sega would always hire out, and it's probably Sega of America or Sega Europe, to make these like 8-bit port of their games. Let's talk about Streets of Rage 2, which came out on December 20th, 1992 in North America. This time around, the Sega AM7, I think, co-developed it with Ancient, a studio that was actually owned or co-owned by Yuzo Koshiro, the soundtrack designer, and his sister worked in the studio. And then I read an interview when I was doing research, and he said his mother was like the boss or something, family business. So that's very strange. It's probably worth its own article right there.
Wow.
The game features 2 new characters, with Max Thunder, which was like a ripoff of that Final Fight character, the mayor, what's his name? Haggard.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Skate Hunter, which is Adam's brother. Adam Hunter was missing from this game, and then we have Axel and Blaze again.
Axel,
so 4 characters.
You know, it's worth noting, the reason why Adam wasn't in the game, again, going back to that book I mentioned, the series director Noriyoshi Oba said that Adam does not appear as a character that's playable because he's kidnapped. And he said he wanted to increase the variety of actions, and so he added characters with power, Max, and with speed, Sammy. However, due to memory capacity of the game, only 4 characters could be included. Because Axel and Adam are similar, and Sammy is Adam's brother, we decided to cut Adam. So there's your information.
That makes sense, though, if you think about it. I know a lot of people were mad that he never even came back. I don't think he ever came back as a playable character. But I kind of like Skate, even though he was stereotype of the 90s.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like rollerblading, he has a backwards hat. It's so much edge, you know?
Yeah.
But favorite character in this one?
My personal favorite?
Yeah.
I like playing as Skate. He's like, I mean, he's this goofy character, but that's kind of part of the charm. Plus, he's quick. Like I said, I like the speedy characters. And he's so funny in the 3D Streets of Rage 2 for the 3DS. During the credits, remember, he does the little thumbs up gag?
Yeah. I like, on this one, I like Axel. I like his, he has like the best moveset, I think. But I do like that Skate moves around faster. He has that double tap forward and you can actually move fast. These levels where you're just going really slow, I don't know why that was there, but it's pretty cool. I can see why. I
will admit, though, that the way the game is built, you can't speed through it, obviously. So you'll like rush ahead and then you'll hit a wall, you know, because the game will stop, so you have to fight the guys. So I mean, I guess if you're trying to speed through the game, it doesn't really help all that much. But if you're trying to zip around the actual little fighting area, it's helpful.
Oh yeah, for sure. You can get items faster. This time around, the game had, you know, improvements, had better sprite work, more moves per character, and each character had its own special move, unlike the first game. The first game, you would call it your special move, and there were all the special moves. It was like a guy came out in a car.
Yeah.
But this one, they all had their own special move. Did you like this better, like giving every character their own unique special move instead of the same one?
I did, because I never really liked, I believe it was like a SWAT van or something that came in and they fired a missile. I didn't like how that kind of paused gameplay in the same way that Golden Axe did that too, where you'd throw your hand up in the air and cast a spell, and it slowed things down. So I thought it was a lot better to give the characters their own special moves. It kept the game moving faster, and you know, slip of the finger, you're gonna push that button sometimes, and it was so annoying on the first game when it would be like, oh, here they come again, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. I know some people really liked it, I don't know why, but for me, I think Streets of Rage 2, the improvements they did were better overall for the whole game, but there was also a Game Gear and Master System version, because why not, right? These two versions were actually kind of the same, the Game Gear and the Master System, except for like the color palette. And the Master System version, it had more memory, so the enemies' names were actually displayed by their health. Max was cut on both of these games. They actually kept kind of almost all the same moves that 2 had, so they were all attached. Play the Genesis version if you have a choice.
Oh, for sure.
Did you play any of these or own any of these?
I did not. Again, you know, I did not get into Streets of Rage as soon as it released. I was, how old was I? I was a young boy. It was probably I was like 6 or 7, you know, and I feel like a lot of kids at the time, they were like, oh, Sonic, oh, Disney games. And there were some cool, mature, or at least mature for their age, you know, kids who were like, oh yeah, I want Streets of Rage, and I'm only 6.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to play Streets of Rage 2 because my cousins, actually 2 of my cousins, they were separate family. They were like teenagers at the time, so this was the game to get, right, when you're a teenager.
Well, for sure.
And they would rent it. Sometimes they would let me play, but I sucked at it. But I would love watching them play, and I would love listening to the soundtrack while they played. It was a fantastic game. And then sometimes I would get to play and not get that far, obviously, because I suck. It's just one of those games that's just really well done. I've never played the Game Gear and the Master System version, actually. I played them for research, but right. I mean, I'd rather just play the Mega Drive version. I mean, all these other ones, yeah. But what do you prefer? 2, right?
2, yeah, for sure. 2 is my go-to. Though I will say the 3D Streets of Rage that came out not too long ago kind of reintroduced me to the first one and made me really appreciate it. Do you want to talk about the third game, or are we?
No, we're talking about the third game. I have a list of good stuff to talk about the third game, because I find this game to be very, very interesting, because it's like a total change. It's like, I feel like the first game was kind of like cemented. It was still silly, but it was cemented in, like, you know, it's just a fighting game, you know, street karate game with a punk atmosphere. Yeah. And then the second game kind of took that and elevated a little more, added like the wrestler type and this little skating kid from the 90s. It was kind of comical, I guess. Just like balls deep in that weirdness, right?
Yeah.
So this one came out on March 17th, 1994. This is the last Streets of Rage to officially be released by Sega. It features a deeper story with multiple endings, faster gameplay, longer levels, and increased difficulty, especially in North America, because the version got tweaked. And the easy version in Japan, the easy version in North America is normal in Japan.
Yeah.
So they're always one level higher. So what do you think about that? I mean, you played the American version, right?
I did, and I gotta say, I know there's a lot of Streets of Rage 3 fans out there, but it just never clicked with me. And I think it was because of that increased difficulty. But, you know, I know we're going to talk about the music too. The music didn't really click with me. I understand that it's a very innovative soundtrack. But yeah, the game as a whole, it's a great game, but it's not up there for me.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree in a way. Like, when this game came out, I felt like there wasn't... I'm pretty sure if we saw the sales numbers, I don't think this game 2 did. I feel like it was a bit of a drop in, like, hype. Because, I mean, I don't remember what was going on at this time, but... I totally remember nobody that I knew had this game. Like, right. I had to like get it secondhand after when the Saturn was out to experience it. The game also had these are the selectable characters in this game. This game had the biggest roster technically. Axel, Blaze, and Skate returned, and it added Dr. Zane, a robot android. And every time he would pick up weapons, he would get energy balls, which is kind of interesting, I guess. If you had a cheat, you would be able to unlock a stereotypical homosexual character censored in America, Ash, Shiva, the ninja character from Part 2, and he's the first boss in this game, and Roo the Kangaroo, which is a boss in this game too. Yes, is a playable character. I mean, what can you say about that?
It was bizarre. It's like, the weirdest lineup.
I feel like the team was like, you know what, man, let's just do a bunch of drugs and then we'll come up with the character designs.
Yeah.
And this is what happened right here. Robots, kangaroos. Some of the changes, had a lot of changes in the West. Like even little things that don't make any sense. Like the team literally went into the Western version and like changed stuff. Like the main characters that returned all had different color clothing, even though in the Japanese they had the same color clothing as Part 2. Mm-hmm. Axel had a yellow shirt and black pants. Blaze had a white outfit instead of a red outfit. Skate had a blue shirt and blue gloves and hat. I mean, what do you prefer? Like, do you prefer that they changed it, or?
No, I like the originals because I mean I'm assuming that those changes were probably either made begrudgingly by the developers or I don't know, maybe some other staff at Sega did it, but I can't imagine the development team being like, yeah, change the colors that we clearly picked very carefully, you know?
No, I agree. And there was it actually had like a negative consequence. I mean, it's not a huge consequence, but like there's a scene in the beginning of the game where like Axel is punching the screen, and it's in the Japanese, but in the American one, I think it was like deleted because he had a white shirt. It just baffles me that they would go in and change it for no reason. They didn't have to. They just did it.
That's weird.
The Western Japanese plots also have different plots. Like in the Japanese one, there's a thing called Rax-9 that explodes, like an explosion that kills thousands of people. In the, I think the English version, there's like a plot to switch major officials with robots to take over the government or something. So I don't know why they censored that. I think I like the whole idea that there's this big explosion, and plot spoiler, later on in the game you find out it's Dr. Zane, the guy that you picked the explosion and created it. But I don't know, dude. This is all strange, right?
Yeah, no, that's weird.
And then you talked about the soundtrack. It was hard techno compared to with a very aggressive style.
Yeah.
So there's like a big techno scene in Detroit, and it was this like really weird music. And compared to this club music, which was more melodic, I prefer the 1 and 2 soundtrack. I think this is bizarre. I understand it's experimental, but I'm a big advocate of if it's not broken, don't fix it.
For sure.
And he tried to fix this for sure. But this one didn't have a Master System and Game Gear version. Anyway, let's start talking about the re-releases for the Streets of Rage franchise, which there are many, and there's a few of them that are actually worth your money, like the Nintendo 3DS Classics re-releases.
For sure. Absolutely.
So if you have a 3DS and you want to play these games to celebrate 25 years of Streets of Rage greatness, I suggest you guys pick them up. They're only like $5.99, worth every penny.
Mm-hmm.
They have extra stuff. They have 3D features. Nintendo can't even get their Super Nintendo games that have 3D on their 3DS. So this is some Sega magic and work for sure.
Well, I guess just very briefly, do you want to touch on maybe the future of the franchise or lack thereof?
Yeah, there actually was a lot of canceled games. The one that I think, I guess, is that Sega actually hired external studio to make a sequel on the Sega Saturn, but I guess they wanted to port it to PlayStation, right? So they told them, no, you can't do that. The team disagreed and decided to rename the game Fighting Force. Remember that game?
Yeah. And then the sequel to Fighting Force actually hit the Dreamcast, so...
I remember playing Fighting Force and thinking, you know what, man, a 3D Streets of Rage would be awesome. This reminds me so much of Streets of Rage. And later to find out it was supposed to be Streets of Rage in 3D.
Yeah. And then it was... Go ahead.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, then there was also a Streets of Rage 4 that was being developed for the Sega Dreamcast. It looks like it was very early. There was a tech demo that showed the protagonist from the first 3 games. What was it? Walking and fighting various enemies from a classic side-on perspective. Much of the demo was unfinished. There's a few pieces of concept art. You can see them at segaretro.org or maybe dropped into this video. And then there's some external links to the tech demo that you could probably check out. But outside of that, it's been a very quiet time for Streets of Rage fans. Axel did appear in Project Cross Zone 2.
Yeah, or is it X?
I say
Project whatever it's
Project X Zone. Yeah,
called. He's in there, but Sega's been kind of dormant on the franchise. They've been very. Hey, I like that they're like this because like one bad game could ruin the legacy of a franchise. Like I think Final Fight Streetwise, it's kind of a stain on the franchise. Like the franchise, I'd rather just have 3 great games instead of you trying to bring it back and making a shit game.
Right, absolutely. And the 3D Streets of Rage and 3D Streets of Rage 2, they are technically new games in the franchise. I mean, they're re-releases, but they're kind of rebuilt, remade, and there's new features to them. So it's a fun way to re-experience the games, even if it's not a sequel.
And I could think of a lot of things they could do with a new Streets of Rage games, but like I think the market has to be. I don't know. I think it might be ready for it. What do I know? I mean, you guys tell us in the comments below, right?
Yeah. If you'd like more Sega news, check us out at SEGAbits.com. And also, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on all our social networks.